Welcome to the Innovation Squadcast. If you are looking for a podcast about instructional strategies enhanced by technology, you came to the right place. In our conversations, we will talk with tech experts, share ideas and strategies to help you build your toolbox with tools that you can use in your class immediately.
Welcome to the Innovation Squadcast, and thanks for making us part of your educational PD journey. First-time listeners, welcome, and for our returning listeners, welcome back. We are so glad that you're here today because we are discussing the shift of an audience of one to an authentic audience. Again, this is inspired by Doctors Tucker and Novak, and the shift to student-led. This is a wonderful book that we enjoy and pull a lot of different resources from. And so we're going to be talking about that today because, we're talking about like creation products and we're talking about what, students create. We tend to forget about what the audience is. And when students move from creating projects to teachers to creating projects for their class, for the school, or even the world, the product you get can be different. The project will move from what we call adequate or good enough to sometimes extraordinary when you switch that audience. Students care less about the grade and more about the process. And so in this episode, we will discuss ways for you to shift the audience to empower students to increase engagement and motivate students to go above and beyond. Before we get into all that, let's pause for this week's tech tip. This week's tech tip is in Google Slides. I'm picking a template gallery Google slide because I like the colors, I like the layout, but I'm not crazy about the font. And I want to be able to edit that font throughout the entire presentation where I don't have to go into every slide. Google Slides has the ability to do that. And what I want to do is edit the theme. And so I'm going to go to the top of my menu bar. I'm going to click Slide. In the drop-down menu, I'm going to select Edit Theme. And then I'm going to get all of my different layouts in there. Now, I could go and lay out and edit each slide if I want to, but in this case, I'm just looking to edit the font. So I'm going to click the very top slide, and the word theme is right underneath it. I'm going to select that. And that's going to give me my menu options to change, and then also the different levels of text to change throughout the presentation. I can change each individual level to change the different fonts if I needed to do that. I could also select all the different levels that are there. There are 9 different levels, and then select my menu drop down and change the different to a different font that would then affect everything inside the category. I can also edit the font sizes to wherever I want them, and also even change the colors inside of that will reflect again throughout the entire presentation. I can also select the titles, and I can change those titles to select the font that I want. I can bold it, underline it, and again, also change the colors to whatever colors I need for this particular presentation. And then once I click out of that by clicking the X in the upper right-hand corner, I can now go look at my presentation. You can see that the font is changed in each one of my slides as I click through. So that's a quick, easy way to edit your fonts in Google Slides. All right, welcome back. Hope you guys enjoyed that tech tip. I am Jimmy Kate.
I'm Pam Hubler.
And we are talking authentic, moving the audience of one to an authentic audience. Sometimes I also call it the audience of many, right? Just increasing that audience can be a really powerful message moving through. And I think one of the things that really kind of cemented it for me is this idea of the excitement that students get, in when you're building these lessons. And, there's many different times that I increase the audience, and I always come back to, we used to do this museum project, 3D museum, virtual museum project. And every year I'm like, you know what, I'm going to show this one to the school. And the amount of engagement from the kids and what they wanted to do at first, what are you going to get when you talk to these kids? They're going to be, I don't want to do that. I want to be shy. They're very skeptical. They're going to be very slow sometimes to get going.
This is high school, right?
Yes, this is high school.
Yeah, high
yes,
school. It's hard to motivate them
Yeah,
sometimes.
it is. And they're going to be really slow to get going. And I think what a teacher, sometimes you can panic in that situation, but really what you do is you just let them sit in it for a little while, let them start getting those creative juices going. And then after a while, that enthusiasm kicks in, the excitement kicks in. And what you see is them asking for more time and more engagement and coming in during their lunchtime and working on it, coming in before and after school and working on it, right? And so that's when I started to notice the power of the audience and just how important it can be. And then you actually kind of introduced us to the levels that John Spencer kind of, talked about. I think it was in his launch book is where he talked about these and kind of, walk us through those levels and what, John Spencer said, Dr. Spencer said.
Right. He just has like level one as far as like the students reflect, and then they create private work. They have to start with that. And then they go into the typical, and then they go into level two, which is like a typical semi-private, like,
Right.
Teachers, classmates, just those small groups. And then going into that level three, which you would share with other classes. So
Right.
outside
Yes.
of the doors, not
Yep.
outside of school, but, or the whole school. And then level four goes into the sharing publicly.
Sure.
And that's where it really steps another notch and kids start to say, oh, wait, other people are going to see this?
Yes. Yeah, you see just a tremendous change in how they engage in it. Another time that we use this, and this is where you talk about like the growing, and we were in a high school class, and a group of my kids had come up with the project idea that they wanted to basically be suffragettes. And they wanted to, make the signs and dress up like suffragettes and kind of do a little chant and this kind of thing. And then it turned in they were actually going to do like a little protest through the hallways. And then I asked my principal, and my principal's like, yeah, let's do it. And then it turned in like the whole class got into it. So it's like something that was started as like a group of 3 or 4 students grew to a whole class, and then eventually became a whole school thing. And then the next year, I had students show up as like, when are we doing the protest through the hallways thing? Like, I was like, yeah. So like it became like this, almost like a tradition that they wanted to do because of what they saw other students do that as well.
That makes me think of like in Teach Like a Pirate. That's one of another great book by Dave Burgess, and he talks about the whole, could you sell tickets to your class?
Right.
Like, is it that exciting that you could actually sell tickets for people to come watch?
Sure.
And I really do think things like that make it that way.
I don't think I could have sold tickets, but definitely got kids pretty excited about, certain projects. And that was, one of those things. And one of the ways that you can do this, right? So how could you shift your audience? And one of the ways that, we've learned from reading the books and different things like that is what we call kind of the raft model, where you're kind of looking at, an acronym here. We love acronyms in our education, the raft model. And that's the idea of taking a project and looking at, all right, what is the role? Like, what's going to be the role of the student? What is going to be the role of the topic? How are they going to interact with this kind of project? And then the A obviously is going to stand for audience. And that's where you want to make that shift. Can I move this from just me seeing it as a teacher or just my class seeing it? Or how could I bring in, and we'll talk about some of those other ways you can bring in outside audience as well. Same thing with format. And a lot of times the raft model too was used in writing. A lot of times this was really helped to kind of guide the writing. And then, we just kind of adopted it into like the creation model instead of the writing model. What format is this going to be? And it's going to be a video, a podcast, et cetera. How can I make this more visible for everybody? And then what's obviously going to be the topic, which is the T in our raft model. So this is one way that you can look at a project, you can look at something that students are creating and kind of move it to a different level as well. So.
And with technology, I mean, there's so much you can do now that we didn't have an option to be able to extend that audience as well.
Yep. And so we talk about like extending the audience, and just want to give you some examples of what you can do. These are just a few of the ones that we came up with. We're not limited to it. Any way that you can really extend the audience. And we've already really talked about the idea of bringing in the school, right? Even just opening up to your classmates can be sometimes a level. I think there's a John talks about the typical semi-private teachers, classmates. I think moving it from teacher to even classmates, you're going to get a shift, right? It's almost like a 2A there. But yeah, when you bring it to the whole school, one of the ways you can do that is by inviting family members, community members, getting them involved. And if, the students know that someone's coming to see this a little bit differently. We went to the Sangre Elementary had like a living museum in the expositions. You remember that?
Yeah, a lot of elementary schools do that, which are really cool.
Yeah, they're great. And you see the kids, I mean, the level of engagement, the kids are dressed up, they're sitting there, they're doing an exposition where you're having to go and they're going to have to give a presentation, and just the level of enthusiasm and engagement and knowledge. I mean, it's incredible. And if you could do that for multiple things, just think about what you're going to get. So inviting in those family members, community members, things like that. So.
Yeah, they even do that with like mystery readers and things like that. When a parent shows up, it's so exciting, especially for elementary. I mean, of course, high school, they probably wouldn't be super excited.
No, high school kids usually don't want parents showing up. Usually some things have gone wrong at that point. But hey, that could be something we need to change. Maybe we need to get parents in there for the right reasons and not anything else. And so even, like I said, at the school I was at, we had school news programs. And so we would sometimes highlight, they would do like a package on some of the things we were doing, and then also play, like I'd highlight the virtual museum would show up there as well.
Right.
Even like we would make, models, and we would put them in the media center and like have the students vote on them. Just changing that little level of engagement really would get the kids going. I'll never forget too, one time we did that, and I was like, we were making them. It was the first time I came up with this idea. We're making these projects, we're making models. And I was like, man, these are really good. Like, and I was like, people need to see these. And it was just an unconscious decision. I was like, I told the kids, like, all right, we're gonna put these at the media center, and we're gonna let people vote on them. And the kids all kind of pushed back a little bit, but then the next day they come back and they've got all this other stuff now that they're going to add to their model, and they really dove into it even further. And I was like, you just see the levels of enthusiasm and engagement really change significantly because of that. So
I did that even with when I was an instructional coach at Daniel Island. One of the classes was doing sketchnoting as just another version of being able to take notes. And I did take pictures, and I shared it on Twitter with the author of Carrie Bauckham, My Pencil Made Me Do It. And she was so excited, and she retweeted it. And just that alone, the kids were like, wait, that's my work? I mean, they were really excited. And then I started getting emails from teachers sharing more sketch notes that they had done in the class when I wasn't even there. So
just taking pictures of your kids and posting what they've done. And in Schoology, you got the media albums things now. You can share those really easily, and that can, again, move that level even more. We talked about, really taking it to other levels, doing like in a school assembly, or even, really getting everybody involved. We're talking about virtual meets with experts and being able to show off what they've created. And then sometimes just kind of reframing your maker project and writing prompts. And what I mean by that is actually creating some kind of real world scenario, or even bringing in, like, we're writing an editorial to the newspaper about this, or we're going to, post something in the school newspaper about this. Just, you can still have them write, and you can use your writing standards, but you can rephrase it in a way that's going to make that writing more public and more visible. And I think you'll get a different level of writing from students when they do that.
Definitely.
And then so those are some ways that you can get those kind of, shifts in there as well. But we also want to talk about, like, what are some examples of what does it look like, right? And so we talk about in the classroom or bringing in classmates. We talk about a gallery walk all the time. I think, the power of a gallery walk, I think sometimes gets underestimated, but, just having that ability to go around and look at what's going on, I think is a great one. We talked about the expositions. And then there's some questions that Dr. Tucker and Novak brought in there, and kind of you brought up those questions right here.
As far as like to
kind of guide the gallery walk and expositions.
Like, what do you see? What do you think? What do you wonder? What kind of connections can you make? Or, just kind of how can you challenge yourself, or how can that person challenge you? And just, I like that. I used to think. Now I know. I do like that one.
That's one I used to use a lot too. I used to think, and now I know. But just give those questions to those kids to guide those, so it's not just a kind of walking around doing nothing. But, really kind of guide that as well. One that we were actually I was working with one of my middle schools in, and that's you doing TED Talks, and you would think that's a really scary thing when you're talking about this. And when I brought this project idea to the middle school teachers, they loved it. Brought it to the middle school students, same thing. What did I get? Shy, skepticism, like, oh no, all those stuff. But then after a few minutes, I started seeing students walking up to the teacher, can I change my topic to this? Can I change my topic to that? What you saw was, all right, I was picking one initially because it was easy and I could do it easily. Now that I know that somebody's going to see this, I'm going to pick something that's a lot more up my alley. It's a lot more what I'm passionate about, something I'm going to do a better job with. And so that just shows you the power of that audience, is that enthusiasm kicks in almost immediately. So
because it's hard to talk about things that you're not passionate about. I mean, it's easy to just go through a list of the things that you maybe Googled to find out, but you have to be passionate about it to really get into it.
And to see that, like, within minutes, not even just not even a day, within minutes, they had already started changing their topic. They're getting involved, and what they created was really fantastic. So and the teachers said, we're doing that again this year. We're doing it from day one. So that's going to be something excited I'm working with. So, podcasts are another great way to even to change engagement. You don't have to send them out to the world, right? You got to think about that, but you can just make them visible for students and make them visible to even your school. And that can really change things as well.
Right. So. And I think with podcasts, it's one of those things that it sounds so complicated. Even I thought that way when we started doing this together as a team, where I'm like, oh my gosh, the podcast, that's, I don't know. But then when they really start talking about just audio or you have a little Google Meet going and you're recording that like we've done before.
Right.
There's so many ways to do it. It's just a matter of having those conversations and sharing it.
Sure. And you don't have to have all this fancy information.
No.
Do it with your Chromebook, do a
Right.
little microcast, something like that.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of great ways. Reach out to your ILCs and we'll be more than happy
Yes.
to help you with that as well. Video creation, same thing. Anytime they're creating a commercial, a public service announcement, or
Yep.
anything, anytime you're creating, videos that they know that other people are going to see, that engagement enthusiasm really goes up high. I think I love watching the weather ones with the public service with like the natural disaster. It's like third grade, I think, is that standard.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that's one. Those are my favorite to work with as well. And then anytime you can bring in any kind of project-based learning, I think when you can have that connection to the real world, and that's where you bring in maybe some experts or community leaders or something like that, and tie those into your standards and let that project grow. But make sure, again, it's visible to a bigger audience. That engagement, I think, even goes up another level as well. So.
Yep, include them in the conversation. I mean, really, and the teacher doesn't have to be the one that makes the decisions. I mean, you can even have hey, this is generally what I'm thinking. What do you think? Yeah. And some of them would be, they get really creative and like, we should invite this person, or, there's lots of ideas.
Yep. And so that is the shift that we talk about. And we talk about these, different shifts that come along that we learned in the side of this book. And this is just one of the chapters in it. And it really all is a shift in your mindset, right? Just taking that one project, think about that favorite project that you do and how can you move it up a level? How can you increase that audience and to see how your children will grow as well, your students will grow, or that one project or one, a standard that maybe is not your favorite or the one that the kids really struggle with, maybe changing that audience could be the way to make a difference.
True.
So I think, just kind of thinking about that really helps as well. So definitely want to give a shout out to our teachers that made it onto our podcast the last couple of episodes, Timothy Capazzi and Ashley Wilson. She helped us out with the Schoology organizational one. So if you missed that one, go check it out. Definitely thank them. And then Lee Cook and her episode about creating authors in education was really, really powerful. And if you missed that one, please go back and check out those as well, because you get credit for coming, going to them. The Squadcast PD is up and ready to go. So anything we talked about is in our show notes. So check those out for resources. There's a link to the video if you want to check out the video if you're just listening. There's also a link to the tech tip video. And then also a link to that Innovation Squadcast PD that I was talking about. Every 2 episodes, you get 1 renewal credit. Fill out a Google form that comes along with it. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to tell your friends to subscribe to YouTube and Spotify. If you think it's going to help them, get them watching and make sure you get those notifications for new episodes. And we want to hear from you. We need episode ideas. We need topics. We want to make this podcast for you. So please reach out to us. And if you want to be on the podcast, we'd love to have you on as well. So thank you for being here, Pam. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. Until next time.